Welcome to Conversations for Our Time with George and John, the Quiet Sun team. This is podcast number 20, and it's part 10 of the mini-series on regenerative living. So we're going to kind of carry on from last week. I was interviewing George about fasting, and I learned a lot. I'm sure other people did. Actually got some really nice comments on the channel on YouTube, which was really inspiring, both, encouraging myself and George to continue doing what we're doing. So it's really cool. I really kind of, happy with reading that. So fasting is a massive subject, and George obviously only covered a little bit of it. And it's kind of sent me on a journey as well in regards to just trying to understand it a little bit more. And it links in with, what we're going to talk about next, kind of links in with other studies that I've had to do with the soil, because of course everything's connected. But we ended the podcast last week talking about germ theory and the terrain model. So these are two opposing theories on how germs affect human beings, basically. So it's a really interesting subject because obviously it's very relevant to today. And I'm a firm believer in the terrain model. And I can say that because I don't really get sick. And although I'm exposed to germs quite a lot, I'm exposed to a lot of bacteria. I don't tend to use my gloves all the time when I'm gardening. So I'm always exposing myself to that. And even when I do get, a hint of something, my body's really quick at responding. And some of that is actually to do with my mind saying to myself, you don't get ill. And I just rest. So I hope that's like a bit of a kind of a precursor to what George is going to go on to empower us with. And so George, how you doing, man? And please tell me a little bit more about the germ theory and terrain model.
Sure, no worries, John. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just been a bit of a busy week, and sometimes even I get caught up in the nets of a matrix and struggle with time. But I'll always have time to do these podcasts. It is, we're really covering some good ground here, I think, and we're bringing more light into the earth, bringing more light into the world, and we're bringing in information that, for example, this, I remember talking to you about this, I think over a year ago, regarding the germ theory and the terrain model, because since March 2020, the terrain model has really come to light. And it was the missing piece out of absolutely everything. It was the missing piece, and I don't think it's an accident that this information, this knowledge, has come to our awareness, because we're here to learn about it. So it's come through, and it's blown the germ theory right out the window. And if people knew the truth, and we only bring the truth and the light here, that's it. Okay. If people knew the truth about the germ theory, the whole current medical system will collapse, absolutely collapse, because it's just a theory, and unfortunately, it's 100-year lie that the public have swallowed. You make the lie big enough, people will believe it, and anything that affects their security, if anything is a threat to their safety, they will show their fear and they would want to be saved. Now that is a uh, typical technique that the controllers of the world use. So that's what's happened with regards to the germ theory. That's how big the issue is. If people knew, the current medical industry will collapse. So it's always been the terrain model. I mean, this information has been about for a very long time now, but it's come to light really a lot in the last 3 years. And it's plain and simple to me that terrain is everything. It amazes me still today in society that people are still blaming their genes for their ill health and not what they actually put into their body. And it does shock me because it looks like society, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, are not frightened of what they put in their body. They don't actually know what they put in their body. Um, I don't drink fizzy drinks. Too much aspartame in there for me. People have these drinks and they don't know what effects that they're having in the body. I'm not an advocate of eating meat myself. I'm plant-based and I'm vegan, but there are people out there that if you they're eating antibiotics, bovine growth hormone meat. If you're going to do that, at least eat clean meat, because those chemicals are having an effect and a toll in your body. And again, people are using the vaccines and have no idea what's in them, and they're just taking it because of the fear aspect, and they've just totally given up their responsibility and given it to the doctor. Because unfortunately, we do live in a nanny state where they just want the magic pill. But we're bringing this information, and the public, they really rule out these things of what makes them ill. It's always been what you put in your body. The disease is created only in the body, otherwise would all be dead. I have to make it abundantly clear. You can't catch anything. You can't catch anything. Otherwise would all be dead. And that's the honest truth of it all. Why do some people get ill and some people don't? If there is a deadly virus, would all be ill. But that's the truth of it. And there's always going to be, a point where the body gets so full up with toxins, overloaded with toxins, and it's going to try to detox. That's what the body does. That is what the cold and flu is. It's a detox symptom. And what without getting too much into the COVID thing, but it's just been rebranded. The pharmaceuticals and the medical industry, they just rebrand things. So COVID is just the flu, but that doesn't mean flu isn't. It still takes lives. People die with the flu because the body cannot handle the detox. It's overloaded and it's too much. I forget what the figure is. We won't get a true figure of how many people die a year from flu, but that's what it is. It's just a detox process. It's the body trying to heal itself, and you look like you're really ill, but it's your body that's trying to clean itself up. And this has really come about, as I say, since the COVID stuff, and in the cells, what happens is the cells call upon viruses in the body. This is the indoctrination um, that the medical system have implanted into society. Viruses, they're not outside the body. No matter how ill someone is, you can't catch it. These viruses are exosomes that clean up the area that needs cleaning. It's all to do with the body cleaning up with itself. So, John, have you heard of exosomes before?
I haven't actually, George. No. Can you give us a bit more detail?
Yeah, no, that's no problem. It's just with exosomes, that's what it's all. That's what it's doing. It's all to do with pleomorphism, which I know you've heard of what pleomorphism is. Cells change depending on the environment. What happens is the bacteria is cleaning up the environment and changes it to into yeast, into mold, and then into fungus. That is what pleomorphism is. It changes shape, color, and size, and does whatever it needs to clean up the toxins, to try and heal you. It was the scientist Royal Raymond Rife who invented the universal microscope. It's called the Rife machine, and it was a very powerful microscope. 30,000 times more powerful than any other scope. So he was basically able to do what Bajomp couldn't do. So it's all to do with due to the less advancement in tech. So the Rife and used this scope, and he could see the cells changing shape and size, which is independent on the environment. So of course it's never public um, at this work. So Bajomp, him and other scientists would blow the germ theory into pieces. Okay. Um, Other scopes that were used were just snapshots, so little moments of time, pictures. But Rife saw the whole thing. He could see what was happening. But what they do is is like stain a sample to view it. Staining it is poisonous, which kills the tissue. So they take the tissue out of the body and try to keep it alive with poison. It's never going to work. And then you starve it of its nutrients because it's taken it away from its natural environment. Now the tissue dies, and bam, it's a virus. It kills. And Rife used the universal microscope, and he used a light spectrum to stain it, which is not toxic. And he caught it in the environment as well. So Rife saw all the changes in that environment. Um, so, but the germ theory of Louis Pasteur is which runs off monomorphism. It's one germ for each disease, and basically, the pharmaceuticals are going to make money off you from the diseases, from this disease and that disease and that disease, and they're just trying to give a name for each one. They want you to kill the germs. But if it wasn't for the germs, we wouldn't be here today. If we could catch a virus, as I said, we'd all be dead. So that's the basic information on the germ theory versus the terrain model. It's always been the terrain model. And once that information is come to light, I mean, I'd highly recommend people research Antoine Bajomp all the way. Okay, the cells change dependent on their environment and pleomorphism. So, and whilst you're going through this detox, and it could be heavy, as I say, John, you've felt rough before. I mean, when was the last time would you say that you've had real proper flu?
I would say, George, 15 years, I reckon. About that amount. I was just thinking about it as you were talking, actually. And I also wanted to kind of, kind of share something that these two things that I kind of feel are related to the terrain model. Uh, Epigenetics, which is quite fascinating. And epi means over, outside, or around. And this is like it's in biology, the study of heritable traits or a stable change in cell functions that happens without the changes to the DNA sequence. So they're like changes that kind of happen on this cellular level that can affect our interaction with something outside of us. So that's like one kind of connection to what you're talking about. So, and I think this is important. This is interesting because it makes me think how we're evolving through these interactions in our environment, you know. So if you're eating certain foods, how's that kind of changing these traits that we have within us? And the other thing I kind of like, I was researching for the podcast tonight, is horizontal gene transfer. Both these things I learned through studying soil. And this is a really interesting one because this is the transference of a particular helpful gene from one organism to another. And the reason I mention this is because all of this is kind of connected. Do you know what I mean? So like we have this terrain theory where it's not about the germ, it's about the person. And why does that person not get ill? You know, like I'm talking on a cellular or DNA level. Like how is that? Because like for instance, the rest of my family, like my close family, they're always ill. They've always got a cold or something, you know. And what's that difference between me and that person? You know. So I think like we can look at this on many levels. And I kind of just wanted to add that because I think it's important that we see these things from the microcosm to the macrocosm. Every interaction we're having with our immediate environment is having some kind of effect on us as a human being. And that then has a knock-on effect with other things that are coming into our sphere of influence. So what are your thoughts on that, George?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all connected to it, you know, and there's a lot of information that, you know, that we're going to put onto these podcasts that people really have to know because it's a lot. You know, you're talking about epigenetics. What I will say is for people to look into Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. He does a wonderful presentation and he's got a wonderful book on the biology of belief. And he goes into epigenetics really deeply. But it is now is the time that we have to, you know, we have to take control of our lives, you know, because they want us, the medical system want us on their pharmaceutical drugs, and they are blaming the germ theory. But we breathe in, I don't know, 14,000 germs an hour, right? Why are we not always sick, right? So it's the cells that change dependent on their environment. And, you know, you are going to look, once you're detoxing, it could be really heavy for you. And you're going to have these symptoms that look like a virus. And of course, you've got, you know, you've got the Hollywood movies, they're all programming people that you can catch the virus, you can catch a virus, and there's always going to be a vaccine that's going to save them. That's the main premise of it. But when you're ill, it looks like that you have a virus, and that's what it looks like. But it isn't anything to do with it. You can't catch it. The body is trying to get not only what we put in the body is trying to get rid of toxins of, you know, poisonous air, the water as well. You We live in so much pollution that, I dread to think in places like China, how people's lungs look like, you know. And it's always been what we put in. So we've got that on top of what foods that we're eating, and we've just got to take the responsibility back. The information that we put in these podcasts is absolute golden for your health. And unfortunately, we have, there's no other way of looking at it. The current medical system and doctors are paid off drug dealers, and that's the crux of it. That is the crux of it. And unfortunately, the people that are going to them feel powerless and they're scared. But we're here to teach you, to take your power back and to do these things yourself. You know, um, you got to be your own doctor. You have to be your own doctor. And I know we talked about fasting in the last two podcasts, and then we talked about no food, no water. I don't want this to scare anyone, but there is a science behind that. If you don't want to do no food, no water, your next best fast is a water fast. Make sure it's clean water. If it scares you that much, but there is a science with all these different types of fasting, and there is a place for it depending on where you are in your journey, what level you are at. Rather than going to the edge of the cliff, we want people to be healthy, but it has to be yourselves that does it, So yeah, I just wanted to add that to it. But it's an amazing model. The terrain model is absolutely amazing. There is books out on this. You can get free PDFs on this. And let's start empowering ourselves, John, with our health.
Yeah, George. Yeah, I think it's another piece of that really kind of resonates with everything that I believe, which is that everything is interconnected. And these interactions are so, expertly woven by nature that it's like the mirror, isn't it? Everything's a reflection. The oneness of the body and the mind. We know that if we feel depressed, our immune system is compromised. And whatever is in society is reflected within us. This is why, I've lived in Essex, for all my life. And then I've moved to London temporarily. But I can feel the difference. I'm sure you can, George, as well. In the energy out there. And that is also influencing us on a massive scale. So I think that's really important. And I think this is why, certainly in cities, so many people seek things like yoga or fitness or meditation or ecstatic dancing, which we're doing on Saturday, George, which is going to be awesome. Because we need this, we need to feel like we're connected, and these artificial expressions or creations take us away from that natural connection. And I've been saying for a long time that all these events that disconnect us from the truth of nature is what is steering humanity away from where we all want to be going. And whether it's the vaccines or whether it's human-driven climate change, unless you study these things that we study, it's very difficult to see through the propaganda. And that's really important, because these expressions in our society are expressions within us. And they do make us feel, they can sit quite horribly with us. when we're faced with a truth that doesn't resonate with what we've been told. But once you let go of that conditioning, you realize that all these things make sense. They're universal truths. And this is really what our podcast is about, isn't it, George? Is getting the universal truths out there, things that have been spoken about for thousands and thousands of years but have been lost. So all we're doing is we're passing on this lineage from our ancestors onto people. And I replied to someone that wrote a comment on one of our videos and our podcasts, and I was just like, thanks so much, because we love doing it. It feels purposeful. So talking of kind of carrying on this lineage and connecting to our ancestors, I think that's a good segue into talking about plant medicine. So George, you've been out to Mexico a couple of times, and you got on the plant medicine journey a few years ago. So do you want to kind of just give us an intro into that, and then just tell us a little bit about your experiences and what would you like to share with people?
Yeah, sure, John. Wow, it is it's a massive subject. It's one that's changed my life, and I'm going to be completely honest. It was probably about a year and a half ago where I wasn't, as you know, I wasn't doing particularly well mentally, and I don't think you was in a great place either. But we supported each other, and we got through it. Things come to you into this life. Solutions come to you. Now, it's all to do with the ego mind. It makes you suffer because it tries to justify everything, and it tries to justify, and it says, why haven't you got this? Why haven't you got this? And your desires. But I mean, there's a choice. You could go to nature, or you could go to the current medical system. Now, you do have a choice, and I guarantee you that if I went to the current medical system in that state of mind, they would have put me on antidepressants and anxiety pills, and where I was, I was openly suicidal back then. And what's the point of going on these pharmaceutical drugs if their so-called side effects is depression, anxiety, and suicidalness? It is the definition of madness. So I have to be blunt regarding that. You have a choice, and if I went that path, I'd still be on those pharmaceutical drugs, doing their talking therapy, which doesn't really get me anywhere. So I chose a different path. It come to me, people were suggesting, you need to do perhaps magic mushrooms. I started off with magic mushrooms and worked my way up to a high dose, and it changed my life. It really showed me who I was, and is a reason why people have taken them in the past, our ancestors, because we evolved from that, and we realized this whole oneness is everywhere in every dimension, and it's a truly beautiful thing that you are it. It's about understanding human consciousness, and that human consciousness is you, and it's all different dimensions as one, and it's all you, and the outside, so-called outside world, is reflecting back. So it changed my life. And then as I was doing, I mean, I must only have done magic mushrooms probably about maximum 10 times. You don't need to do them a lot, but I worked my way up to a higher dose. But then also found shamanic plant medicine, and the most amazing plant medicine is ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a shamanic plant medicine that has been used in ceremonies for thousands of years in Peru, in Mexico. You can practically get it in any country. I first did it in England, but they make up the actual plant itself, make up two plants, and the name comes from the vine itself. It comes from the Amazon forest, the ayahuasca vine. They use that with some leaves and they brew it. So you drink it, and it's not the most pleasant drink, I have to tell you. Um, it's not very nice, but it's a very strong drink. It's not much. It's like a shot glass. Okay, and they help to switch off certain enzymes in the gut that enable the active components in the leaves to be absorbed by the body. So you need both, and this is called the mother plant, or some people refer to it as the grandmother plant, and has amazing benefits. So I did that in England. You could do that in England, um, and it was a beautiful ceremony. And I was told that the first time you won't go deep into it. I think it's because the grandmother plant wanted to ease me into it, because there's a lot of stuff that in my subconscious that needed to come out in the open that a lot of talking therapy can't do. Don't get me wrong, there is obviously some benefits to talking therapy, but ayahuasca has a way of getting into your subconscious, your deep traumas, whether it's in this lifetime or the past lifetimes. But it has that magicalness of getting deep, and boy, did I go deep. Um, so that was the first time, and then this year I went on a retreat in Mexico um, in January, and it was, I think I went there for about 8 days. And I also did the ayahuasca ceremony. You have two ayahuasca ceremonies, one in the day and one in the night. They're very different in the day and the night. It's very, very strange. And I also did the Bufa alvarius, and I also did the Cambo. So with the Cambo, it's not the most pleasant. I don't know um, if you've heard the process of the Cambo, John.
No, George, please. I think you kind of briefly mentioned it to me, but yeah, please kind of tell everyone about that.
So you do it on an empty stomach. Um, the Cambo. So basically, it's frog venom that is used in different tribes as medicine. The the frog excretes this venom or poison, and when under stress, but I assure you that none of these frogs are hurt or in the process. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. But no harm comes to these frogs. But it's a serious purging experience. So what they do is get that. It's not a nice, pleasant process. So the shaman will basically burn, for example, 5 small areas of your shoulder, and then apply the Cambo secretion to the burn, and it kickstarts your immune system. And it takes about 15 seconds to kick in. Very strange the first time that I did it, but it's a mental, it's emotional, physical, and spiritual cleanse. And the process is, before they give you the actual Cambo, you got to drink about 3-4 liters of water. It's a bit difficult to do. And then once you've taken the frog venom, you'll start to be sick. People are probably wondering what the point is, but it's truly remarkable. So there will be a point that you start being sick. So what the point of it is you can see when you're being sick in the bucket, you're puking up that water, but it's also taking the calcification in your body. Your whole life of calcification, of poor food, poor diet, and everything that's gone into you, not just in your pineal gland. You have calcification build up in your body, and that's what you want to get out. Um, and whilst you're doing it, whilst you're being sick, and in between being sick, you got to drink more water, and that's It's really unpleasant. But I did quite well on that one, and that was that experience of the Cambo. And then I also did the Bufo alvarius, which is a medicine that comes from the Sonora Desert in Mexico. It comes from the glands of the back of a toad, which contains very high quantities of DMT. Again, no harm comes to the toads. The DMT is extracted and then dried, and it dries into these crystals in the sun. Now, I've done DMT. I've smoked DMT, but in this Bufo virus is it's slightly different ingredients. It's 5-MeO DMT. Bufo is basically a derivative of DMT, but it's a lot stronger than DMT itself. So you smoke this down. Basically, you smoke as much as you can do. You breathe out as much as you can, and then you just breathe in slowly. You don't want to do it too quickly because you can cough, and you don't want to cough. You want to keep it in your lungs, and you want to keep it down in your stomach and lungs as much as possible. And the first time I did this, usually they say it's like 10 to 15 minutes to have this experience. I was gone for 5 hours. 5 hours I was gone. There's nothing to worry about. It can happen, but it's probably something that I really needed to do. And I sort of remember snippets of it. Even though I was gone for 5 hours, I was in the ceremony room, but I ended up being in the kitchen where everybody eats, and I don't remember getting there. But it was a very weird experience, as in I could hear my ancestors saying to me, "You are so beautiful. You are so loved. You are amazing. Life is amazing." And that's what I took with from that experience. Out of 5 hours, and that's all I needed to take out of it because it's exactly the message that I needed. And this is for our ancestors. I'm very much into shamanic healing, and this is for our ancestors who suffered so much. If you're in that bloodline, you're in the same bloodline, you carry their hurt and pain and wounds, and you try to heal them. You're healing your bloodline, you're healing your ancestors, but ultimately your ancestors are you. They are you. And it's very difficult to explain in words, and you're not meant to in the actual experience, but you come away with a piece of God, or you open yourself up more to God, so you feel that God connection. And what Bufo of Arius is meant to do is to plan you for the transition from this life to death. And death is just, it's an illusion anyway, but it's you're working with your soul, and it helps you into the transition. So very much where people have near death experiences. So that was the experience that I had in Mexico in January as a retreat. I recently went to Mexico again in October, and it changed my life again. It's a beautiful part of the world, Mexico, and there's a reason why it's such a powerful energy and why it's such a healing place to be in the jungle and to do these plant medicines. And I went there again, and this time I only did one ayahuasca ceremony, but it was the biggest and best ayahuasca ceremony I've been to. So that was my fourth one. What they also do in the ayahuasca ceremonies is the music. The music is half the healing, and they sing these old shamanic songs, and you can feel it in your bones. You can feel it in all your cells because it's sound energy, and sound energy, you know, will heal your cells, and it really is so vibratory. and you can just feel it. But it was a massive celebration towards the end, and that's what life is a massive celebration. But I only had one glass this time in the ceremony, whereas in the retreat, in two of the ceremonies of the ayahuasca, I did two glasses each, and I was absolutely tripping, and I was just lying down in my area and letting the plant medicine work because she's so intelligent, she's so wise, she will absolutely give you what you need at that moment. Um, and you can also take notes. There's no hard rules here. You can take notes, and you can also have an intention before you do these plant medicines and write them down. But she's so wise, she will do this gently. And I'm not gonna lie, it can be scary, these plant medicines, because you're going into unknown territory in your human psyche. That's where the fear comes from. But your spirit will take care of you. There is nothing to worry about. But on this one, I only took the one because I wanted to experience it, what it will be like. And it's certainly not as deep, but it was. I got the message. It told me that I was searching for my self unity because I'm really into human consciousness and being one with yourself. She told me it's already here in this moment where the gift is, and I didn't work that out. I always talk about being in the present moment where the gift is because it was pre-sent. That's etymology, breaking the words down. But I was searching before that, before going to Mexico again, my self unity. She told me it was here all along. And there was all these allegories. You'll get all these geometric shapes, which I don't fully understand, but you'll have these visions, pyramids, all of these geometric shapes is just truly beautiful. So she'll make you feel safe as much as possible. You're always going to have a certain element of fear, but I definitely got the message, and she was saying to me, showing me that what you give out, it comes back to you. This is the whole world is you, and the whole universe and universe's dimensions is you. You're having an experience with yourself. Um, and I realized that, and I've been getting so many allegories in life, by doing these plant medicines. Um, I also did the Cambo again, but it was a struggle for me this time. But that could be because I drank 3-4 liters of water beforehand, but I couldn't puke it back up. It seems like my body's just digested the water, but that's probably, you know, that's all right because maybe it's because I've cleaned my body up anyway. I mean, a lot compared to most people. So I didn't manage to puke the water up and get the calcification. But as I say, that could be because I've cleaned my body up, and there was nothing. There's nothing there to clean up. But it's an experience, and I'll take that with me. Then straight after that, I did the Bufo Varus again. This time, I wasn't gone for 5 hours. It was probably about 20 minutes, but the actual process itself I was probably gone for 5 to 10 minutes. And it's very difficult to explain in words, but it took me to heaven, where because in the Bufo Varus, they have the music as well, and it went to heaven. And I'll never forget this experience, but I remembered a lot of it this time. And it was a truly beautiful experience. And I remember the facilitator, um, her name's Pamela, and she was looking at me, and I was looking at her, and she gave me a look to say, I am you. It's just a reflection. Everything is a reflection. And she gave me that look, like to say that I am you, and the whole world is set out for you. And that's what it talks. Everybody is there for you to help you grow and evolve. And these facilitators, these plant medicines, everything is you. It's always been you. The power has always been within you. We just forgot it because our ego mind took over, and we started trashing the world, etc. But you know, she was looking at me as if to say that I am you. You're just having an experience with yourself. Um, and it was a truly remarkable experience. I recommend everyone to do it. And please don't be frightened of doing these plant medicines. People, there's a lot of propaganda out there as well about not to do these plant medicines. If you want to truly heal, you come to these plant medicines and you take your power back, and it shows you who you are. So those are my experiences, and I hope people get to experience these as well.
Amazing, George. Thanks, man. Really, really great experiences. I'm sure a lot of people are going to kind of be inspired by that. I think when I get the chance, I'm gonna go down that route as well. Um, I'm always up for new experiences. So yeah, really, really good podcast. I enjoyed being on the other side and kind of learning more from you, which is always a joy. There's a couple of things I kind of took from that, and this experience of plants are trying to teach us about ourselves. And this is like these cosmic forces being absorbed into a material. And like when we ingest that, we're getting those cosmic forces. And that, Steiner talks about this as well. Um, and this also ties into this epigenetics and horizontal gene transfer because everything is so interwoven and interconnected. I don't think coming from this material, physical form is hard to really comprehend. We can theorize and we can come up with data and all that kind of stuff, but unless you have the experience, you're not going to know what it's like. And plant medicine is a great way. I mean, I've had amazing experiences meditating and chanting, where I feel like I literally am in a parallel universe, and the veils that have built up over my life just kind of drop. So like amazing, bits of knowledge that we glean from these experiences that I think just reinforce what we've always known. And that is we are literally the universe. The universe is experiencing itself through our physical forms. And that doesn't take away from individualization or individuality, but we can truly express ourselves uniquely, but know that we're all expressing ourselves to ourselves. And so this could go all sorts of different ways, George. Honestly, like what we could go from here. But yeah, thanks so much. And I mean, would you like to share any last words?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, no, it's what you're saying is, you and I resonate so much, and yeah, what I'd like to say is, so after doing these, after going back to myself, after doing these plant medicines, after going deeper into fasting, after going to learn to grow food, and getting esoteric knowledge, I've never been more happier. I've never been more connected to the creator. Whereas before, a year and a half ago, I never felt more disconnected from the source, the God, the creator, the infinite intelligent, whatever you want to call it. This is not an accident. These things are there for us to experience. These things are there for us to get back to ourselves. And that's ultimately what it is. and I've done it and it works, and I've never been more happier. And if you know, if I decided to go to the medical industry, it would have been hell. And the other thing I wanted to say is, since doing these plant medicines, it's been 1 year since I've touched alcohol. It's been 1 year since I've touched a cigarette. So these plant medicines and psychedelics, they help you with addictions. I have no interest in these kind of things. And that's the other important thing to mention, is that they help you with addictions. And they just have their own way. Each plant, each mushroom, all have their own way of how they work and heal you, and they all have a place. They shouldn't be abused, but they should be used as a tool to get back to yourself. So I just wanted to say that, and that we are incredibly, you know, um, powerful beings. The word universe in itself, to break that down, it is universe, UNI. It's saying you and I, because it's a reflection. Everything is a reflection, the whole world. And people don't want to hear that. I get why, because all the stuff that's happening in the world, but it means you and I, because you're having an experience with yourself. Uni, you and I, means one, the root word of it. And verse is a song. So we were created by one song, and that's what universe means. And these are the messages, hidden messages in the language that we speak, that that the English language that we speak tell us who we are and what we need to do. And it's all for our spiritual development. So just wanted to end it that way, John. I think that's a good way to end, to break down the word universe and what it actually is and what it means to us, because we are it. We are the whole lot.
Yeah, George, well done. That was amazing. I support and agree with all of that. So thank you, George, and thanks everyone who's going to listen to this. You can look at our George's channel on YouTube, which is George Sandu, which is Conversations for Our Time. This is me and George first started our kind of journey together. Or Sow and Grow Regenerative, that's on YouTube. Both myself and George want to transition to using just Rumble, and I think the new year is an opportunity to do that. So yeah, anyone that kind of listens to our channels, please consider going to Rumble and joining our channel there, because yeah, we want to be able to freely express ourselves. We're not fear mongers or anything like that. We're just trying to empower people to find their passion and live the type of life that they want, and not to be able to live in fear. And I don't think YouTube is necessarily a place that we can do that fully. Thank you, everyone. And one last thing I'd just like to say is happy solstice, winter solstice. And tomorrow we're kind of moving into, the nights and the mornings getting lighter, which heralds a new dawn. It's like the sunrise of the seasons. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what these next few months bring. And I think this is a great time for going within, hibernating, like a lot of animals do in the wild, and really kind of starting to have gratitude for all the good things that have happened this year. And these podcasts are one of them. So thanks, everyone. Have a great period over the next 2 weeks, whatever you want to call that yourself. And enjoy life. It's really precious. Thank you. Goodbye.